Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. If you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in the fun. In today's tutorial, modern meets future for a cutout mock neck top that's out of this world. Speaking of, whether if you're a fan of out there designs or want something classic, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of crochet tutorials and patterns with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 200 grams of yarn. That's 375 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us a guilty pleasure. Mine is that I love reality TV shows. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and will be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and I'm going to explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and start off by making a chain that starts 1 inch underneath the underarm down to where you'd like the bottom of this top to be, so it can be cropped or full length. I'd like for mine to be full length, so I'm going to start by making a chain 55, that's roughly 11.5 inches or 29 centimeters, but I already have mine completed, so I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain, and into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, we're all going to insert with a half double crochet. So pull through, yarn over, pull through 3, once more, yarn over. Into that next chain, pull through 3. Continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. We're now at the end of our row 1. Now getting started on our row 2, which is a back loop slip stitch row, chain 1, flip our work, and into that last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert into that back loop, and yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. Again, into that next stitch's back loop, yarn over, pull through everything, and from here continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, remembering not to tug too tightly, otherwise the following row will be too tight to work into. Now our first 2 rows are complete. For the entirety of the body, it will be a repeat of our 2 previous rows, all within the back loops. So start with a chain 2, flip our work, now yarn over, and inserting our hook into that first stitch's back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us. Insert with a back loop half double, and that's it. Continue with 1 back loop half double into every stitch. From here, continue to repeat our 2 previous rows with no increases and no decreases until we have a portion that can now stretch, because remember, we'll have a decent amount of stretch to it around our body. And I'll meet you back when we end on a half double crochet row when it's completed. We are back. I've now just completed the total width of my body portion. I have a total of 83 rows. My total width is roughly 22 inches or 56 centimeters unstretched. Now, right before we get started on seaming everything together, we do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into our middle row, and our middle row should be a side slip stitch row for everyone. For those of you that have my numbers, I've inserted my stitch marker into the 42nd side row. Now from here, we're going to fold our work in half, making sure that the ribbing is along the outside, then we're going to seam it using an outside loop slip stitch seam. So now that our work is folded in half, we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Start with a pull through and do a chain up of 1 just to secure. Now to do our outside loop slip stitch seam. We're all going to start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert in through that front loop, first stitch within the back panel, insert within that back loop, then yarn over, pull through everything. This outside loop slip stitch seam will look like another back loop slip stitch row. So again, into that next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop, next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything, and that's it. Continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, but do not cut because we can work straight into the top portion together. So we are back. We have just completed seaming up the entirety of our top. Now from here we're going to single crochet along the top of our piece. So right after our seam, all we're going to do is chain 1 and put 2 single crochets into every side half double and 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row. So finding our first side row should be a side half double crochet for everyone. Find that top loop and insert with 2 singles. So there's 1, there's 2. Into that next side row, which is a side slip stitch row, find that top loop and insert with 1. Again, our next side row is a side half double, so find that top loop and insert with 2. There's 1, there's 2. Into our next side row, that's 1. So find that top loop and insert with just 1. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around. And 2 things. We do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the top of the stitch that's worked into the top of our middle row. And then also, this single crochet row is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch. So when it's completed, try your piece on. If it's a little bit too tight, redo some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, redo some stitches with a tighter grip. So we are back. Our single crochet row along the top of our piece is completed. Now we're going to get started on our sleeve, which I've already gotten one done. First things first, we're all going to want to try our piece on and insert our stitch marker into the stitch that's nearest to the corner of our underarm, because we want a little cap sleeve / slant action. So for my stitch marker stitch that is within the middle, I insert it into the 23rd stitch, and for the front of this piece, that is not including that middle stitch. And for the back, counting from the seam, I counted out a total of 23 and inserted my stitch marker into there as well, and I did that on both sides. Now what we're going to do from here, once we have our stitch markers into place, is make an odd number chain that reaches up and over our shoulder to the stitch marker within the back. So I've already went ahead and measured mine out. I needed roughly 13 inches or 33 centimeters. So I'm going to insert my hook into my sleeve stitch marker stitch and start by making my chain, which is a chain 55 for me. So we are back and we have completed our chain. Before we connect it into our other stitch marker stitch, we are all going to want to insert our stitch marker into our middle stitch. So since I made a chain 55, my middle stitch is 28, so I inserted my stitch marker into there. Now we're going to slip stitch it into that stitch marker stitch within the back panel. So pretty simple, making sure that our chain isn't twisted, we're going to slip stitch it into that chain space. And that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Now we're going to get started with our first row, which is a half double crochet row, so chain 2 and flip. Now each of our rows is going to start and end with a decrease of 2. So yarn over, we're going to insert our hook into that first chain, pull through, into that next chain, pull through, then yarn over, pull through all 4. Now from here we're going to be putting 1 half double crochet into every chain until we are 1 stitch left right before our middle stitch marker stitch. So we've made our way down and we have 1 chain left right before our middle stitch marker stitch. Now all we're going to do is a decrease of 3 half doubles. So starting with the yarn over, inserting our hook into that following stitch, pull through, into that next stitch, which is our stitch marker stitch, pull through, then into that next stitch, yarn over, pull through for 5 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through all 5. And we do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the top of that decrease so we know where to do it for the next half double crochet row. From here, put 1 half double crochet into the rest of our chains, leaving the last 2. We've made our way down, leaving the last 2 chains with our half doubles. Now we're going to close it off with a decrease of 2 half double as well. So yarn over, into that second to last chain, we're going to insert and pull through. Then into that last chain, insert and pull through. For a total of 4 loops again, so yarn over, pull through all 4. Now our following row is going to be a slip stitch row, so chain 1 and flip. And starting this row off with a decrease of 2 back loop slips, inserting into that first stitch's back loop, pull through, next stitch's back loop, then yarn over, pull through all 3, and continue with 1 back loop slip stitch till we have 2 stitches left. And make sure we're inserting our stitch marker into the same middle stitch as well. We've made our way down with our row 2. Now closing off our row 2, into that second to last back loop, pull through, last back loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. Now from here it's going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows, all within the back loops, so chain 2 and flip. Just to do our half double decrease together once more, yarn over, into that first stitch's back loop, pull through, next stitch's back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4. From here, continue with our back loop half doubles with our decrease of 3 in the middle and decrease of 2 at the end. And now what we're going to do from here is our 2 previous rows until we have a sleeve length that we like, and I'll meet you back right after we complete an even number row. Alright, so we are back. I've just completed the length of my sleeve. I have a total of 16 rows. Now from here, we're just going to single crochet along the edge and try to curve this side out as much as we can. So getting started, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning the ribbing that we have for the sleeve and for the body is along the outside. Then we're all going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our stitch marker, working towards our underarm, so not towards the middle of our body. And we're going to work into the edge of our sleeve. So what we're going to do is pull our working yarn through and start with 2 single crochet into every side half double, 1 single crochet into every side slip, and I will meet you back once we reach our last side row. So I've just completed working up the slant with our single crochet row. Now we're going to single crochet along the edge, but we are going to make it curve just a little bit. So we're going to start with a decrease of 2 back loop single crochets. So into that first stitch is back loop, we're going to insert and pull through. Next stitch is back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Then 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving 2. Then into that last stitch, a decrease of 2 back loop singles. Then from here, continue to work our way down the edge. So 1 single crochet into every side slip, 2 single crochet into every side half double, and I'll meet you back when we don't have any more side rows left. So our single crochet row is nearly complete. Now we're just going to slip stitch it into the base. So just finding that next available stitch that we have into the base that is working out towards the underarm, not towards the middle. We're just going to find that next available stitch. This is mine right here. We're all going to insert into there with a slip stitch, then do a chain up of 1 and cut, then repeat everything we did here on the other side. Alright, so now that both of our sleeves are completed, we're now going to get started on the mock neck, and this is going to be the same for pretty much every size. So what we're all going to do is start by making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're all going to make sure we're looking at the front panel. The back panel is the one with the seam. Then we're going to, making sure that we're working towards the front panel, insert our stitch marker into the 6th stitch from our middle stitch marker that we have within the sleeve. So counting that middle stitch, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a inserted stitch marker, and then I did the same thing on the other side. Now from here, we're all going to get started on the height of our mock neck. Now we can make this as long or as short as we'd like. I'd like for mine to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters, and it does need to be in an even number. So I am going to start by making a chain 8. You can make this as long or as short as you'd like. Now that we have our chain, block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Then single crochet into that second chain from our hook, insert with a single, and continue with 1 single crochet into every chain. Now we're going to get started with our netting. So we're all going to start with a chain 2, flip our work. We're all going to start by skipping that first stitch and single crocheting into the next. That should give us our first chain space and our first loop for our corset. From here, chain 1, skip a stitch into the next, single, chain 1, skip a stitch into the next, single, and repeat this to reach the end of the row. So our first 2 rows are completed. Now from here, we're going to do a total of 6 back loop slip stitch rows. So chain 1, flip your work, finding that first stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop with a back loop slip stitch, and continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch to reach the end of the row. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and I will meet you back when we have a total of 6 of these slip stitch rows, not counting our single crochet or netting row. We are back. We have just completed our first 6 slip stitch rows. That is not including our netting and single crochet row. Now from here, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to slip stitch it into our middle stitch marker stitch within the sleeve. So into the top stitch, not into the stitch that's nearest to the front panel, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So we're going to bring our hook down into that stitch, yarn over, and pull through everything with a slip stitch that's just to connect. Now we do need to work our way up to the following row, so making sure we're working towards our next stitch marker stitch. We're going to slip stitch into that next available stitch, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making sure we're not working into any of those slip stitches into the base. So continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and at the end of the row, 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and I'll meet you back at the end of that row once we're ready to connect it back into the base. So we are back. We are now about to complete our third row that is connected into the base, and we do need to connect it. So just like the previous row, find that next available stitch, insert with a slip stitch, still doesn't count as a stitch. Then we need to work our way up to the row after that, so slip stitch into that next available stitch, flip our work, and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, making sure that we're not working into any of those slip stitches into the base. Continue to repeat these 2 rows with no increases and no decreases until we're worked into our next stitch marker stitch. So we are back. We have just done our slip stitch rows until we're worked into our following stitch marker stitch. From here, we're not going to be working into the body anymore, so chain 1, flip our work, 1 back loop slip into every stitch, chain 1, flip our work, and then work our way back up. We're going to continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch rows, not connecting into the base anymore, for a total of 29 of these rows. This is going to be the same for everyone because our neckline is going to be roughly the same because it does have a decent amount of stretch to it. So I'll meet you back when we have a total of 29 of these rows. That's not including all of these rows that we've just done before, and then we can get started on the other side. We are back. We have just completed our 29 rows. Now from here, we're going to connect it into the other sleeve that we have, making sure that we're now connecting it into the front panel stitch marker stitch first, not into the middle. So we're going to connect it into this front panel stitch marker stitch, working our way back towards the middle stitch marker stitch, the same way that we did on this side. Then right after that, we're all going to do a total of 6 back loop slip stitch rows that's not connected, just like how we have on this side, and then I'll meet you guys back to finish up with the netting. So we have just completed connecting it into the sleeve and also the following 6 back loop slip stitch rows. Now we're going to complete it with our netting and single crochet row. So we're just going to chain 2, flip our work, skip 1 stitch and into the next, insert with a single, and continue on with this to reach the end of the row. Then at the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 single crochet into every stitch. When we don't have any more, do a chain up a 1 and cut. We have just completed the netting for our mock neck and we are all done. Now the next thing we're going to do is just single crochet along the bottom of our mock neck within the front panel just to clean everything up. So first things first, we're going to make sure the work is still flipped right side out, right side up, making sure we're looking at the front panel. Then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our mock neck within the sleeve, and simply put 1 single crochet into every side row and slip stitch into that next stitch into the sleeve. And now that we have just completed our single crochet row, the last thing we're going to have to do is make a chain that can weave into our corset within the back of the mock neck. And I went ahead and already made mine. I just made a chain of 100 and now we are all done. Last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch y'all on the next one. Bye!